On today's episode of the Retro Gamers Podcast, Chris and Dave from two middle-aged guys trying to work it all out come back for this special two-part episode where we grade the launch titles of the third, fourth, and fifth generation consoles. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Retro Gamers Podcast, your home for casual coffee table conversations about everything retro gaming. Anthony here, and I am joined by two very familiar faces. So familiar, I can't seem to get rid of them. Please welcome back Chris and Dave from two middle-aged guys trying to work it all out. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having us, Anthony.
Thank you for having us, and thank you. We hacked into your Zoom account, and
and as a result, I have no choice but to record an episode with you. So we're just going to go with it, you know?
Basically, right? That's how we operate. Watch your Zooms, people.
That's right. Look out. Bunch of hackers over here. So we have a really fun topic for today. But before we get into it, I just want you guys to introduce yourselves to new listeners and watchers of the show or previous listeners who may have forgotten who you guys are because you haven't been on in like 2 whole months.
Yeah, I'm pretty forgettable. So I'm Chris from Two Middle-Aged Guys. I'm half of those aforementioned two middle-aged guys. And we have a podcast about various poppy culture-y movie, music, video gamey things.
Very often including retro games. Very often. One of our favorite topics. We just listened to your show, Anthony, and just do it back verbatim.
That's what I know, and that's why I became fans of you guys. I'm like, wow, I go they actually copy and pasted my podcast and made it better. So
you're like, this is really good. Where do they get their idea?
Where'd they get this content? And I was like, oh, got it. All right, that's okay. You guys are like every single movie franchise that remakes.
Yes.
But anyway. Obviously, it's always a pleasure to have you guys on the show. I love our conversations, and I really think that this is going to be one of our best ones yet. And the topic for this episode is going to be all about launch titles for consoles. So, somewhere along the way, when I was looking up, when I was doing my retro birthdays for my, for YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff, you'll notice that I definitely post a lot of birthdays for video games because I love to celebrate, all these games in gaming history. And it just made me think about actual console launches and what made them appealing to people. And obviously the way you sell a console is through the titles that launch with it. So from that perspective, Chris, Dave, and I are going to go through a few of the console generations. We're going to look at the launch titles that came out with each one, and then we're going to give an overall grade, basically like a school grade. We're going back to school with this, so A through F, and all the pluses and minuses in between, of how we would grade the launch titles that came with the system when they came out. And guys, I'm assuming you did your homework on this, or are you just winging it?
No, I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go. Hey, can I say this about your retro birthdays? And I'm sincerely kissing up. It's fun. No, those are a fun time capsule because so often it's something that you were familiar with and you totally forgot about. You're like, oh, that is. I won't mention what's going to come up later, but it just strikes me as that's so fun that I've forgot that. I mean, listen. Mario 3's retro birthday. I mean, I think about Mario 3 about 500-600 times a day, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm obsessed with Mario 3. Big tattoo of Yoshi on my back. But you don't hear about, I don't know, Clockwork Knight every day unless you're listening to T-Mac every day, and somehow it's coming up. But it's those are really fun because it reminds me of things that I forgot about, which is always just kind of strange.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that because all the content that I do, like for this show, for all the social media pages, I only do these things that I'm enjoying. And I really enjoy looking up all these birthdays. And also, just like you, reminding myself of, wow, I completely forgot about this game. This game was awesome. Or even something as simple as, I forgot this commercial and it was just hiding somewhere in the back of my brain. And when I
Yep.
rewatch it again, it just brings back that dose of nostalgia. Or most importantly, seeing the commercials or the trailers for games that absolutely sucked. And it's like, wow, I go, they sold this one hard in this preview or whatever it was, and boy was I let down.
Your recent Dino Rinky retro game birthday, where the guy rips his
Yes.
shirt off at the beginning, I was so fun. I'd never seen that commercial. Would have
Nor
never
neither did I.
associated, that game with that image, and man, that is
Yep.
selling hard.
Yeah. But now
You're
you'll
right.
never forget Dino Ricky now because of that commercial.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into our launch title grading system here. We are going to start with the third generation, and we're going to be focusing on two specific systems in the third generation, and we're going to go chronologically with these things based on their release dates. So we're going to start right off the bat with the Nintendo Entertainment System, released in Japan October 18th, 1985. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. It was released in the United States October 18th, 1985. It was a test market release. It was originally released in New York only as a test to see how it would do because this was following the video, Nintendo was really coming out post video game crash. This was really going to test whether or not a gaming system can survive in the North American market again because they had all, done terribly. It had disappeared. So they started with the test market in New York, October 18th, 1985. It did really well. They started expanding the test markets through major cities. And then about a year later, September 27th, 1986 is when it completely covered all of North America with the official full release. So this one's kind of 1985, but really 1986, depending on how you want to weigh that. It all depends on you guys. But we're going to talk about the 17 games that came out at launch with this system. And guys, I'm going to run through this list really quickly, and then I'll turn it over to you, Dave, first to talk about these. Um, the list of launch titles are 10 Yard Fight, Baseball, Clue Clue Land, Duck Hunt, Excite Bike, Golf, Gyromite, Hogan's Alley, Ice Climber, Kung Fu, Pinball, Soccer, Stack Up, Super Mario Brothers, Tennis, Wild Gunman, and Wrecking Crew. Those are the 17 famous black box releases for the Nintendo Entertainment System. So, Dave, when you saw this launch title list, what were your thoughts?
Embarrassment of riches. Like, how fortunate to be able to play those games at that time, right? Especially after the fall of Atari and really the quality of those games from 84 and 85. And yeah, it's such a great list of launch games. I mean, there's a couple really strong systems on here, but this is a really great one. So yeah, looking at this list, taken by a couple of things, they're not all arcade games, which for that time frame, it was about getting the people who were putting the quarters into machines, turning those into, the people who would buy the cartridge and the home gamers. And certainly there are some of those, but it's not all over the place. Handful of sports games, most of which are pretty good, okay, but they evolved. I mean, I think it obviously, right? The A plus on here for so many people in terms of its just as a quality game, its impact on the industry. Super Mario Brothers. I mean, it really is, right? It saved gaming in North America. Imagine a Nintendo without Super Mario Brothers. Imagine if they had packed, I don't know, Wrecking Crew. I'm not shading on Wrecking Crew, but it's different outcome. So that is so the high point. And then you got Duck Hunt too, which is light gun games. They were a big deal. I mean, I remember
Oh yeah.
going to like Chuck E. Cheese or Snowbiz Pizza, but those games, everybody wanted to play those games in the giant screen, and they brought that home in a really fun, colorful way. It's still one of my favorite light gun games. So, I mean, it's such a great rollout. Even if you didn't create a bunch of franchises from this rollout, and I so much fun. I would say that just looking at it, you're taking Mario out of it. I have got so much love for a game that's on your back wall, which is Kung Fu, that
Ah, yes.
is
That's not yet.
too short.
I can't point,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
There
no,
we
you got it. You
go.
were tickling the Kung Fu Man's foot.
Yes, I
Too
was.
short, too easy, repetitive, but still somehow just endlessly replayable. So you got to just toss that out there. Is just one to just I love.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more on that one. That one's one of my favorites by far.
So I'll say that the thing that popped into my mind immediately upon seeing this list is that it is an unfair launch library. And the reason I say that is because it benefited from all of the years that the Famicom existed in Japan. It
Hmm.
benefited from the test market release. And then when they did the full release and were able to launch with 17 very well-made, established games, there's not a lot of systems in history that had that opportunity that the NES had. So it's a little bit, we're grading on a curve a little bit here. They kind of cheated on their exam, but I'm gonna let it slide because I love the NES so much. Dave spoke eloquently about Super Mario Brothers, so I'll go the opposite end, and I will say there is one game on this list that is just fundamentally broken, and that is Stack
Ooh.
Up.
Oh, Stack Up, yeah.
That game just does not work, which is a shame because it's 50% of the library for Rob. Uh,
Or Rob.
yeah, I mean, I have a soft spot in my heart for Rob. I have one sitting on my shelf. I think Gyromite gets way too much hate. I think it's a cool game, and I think playing it with Rob is a really neat experience. And yeah, I know you can just push the buttons on the controller yourself, and you don't have to have the robot do its robot thing. But that's taking the fun out of it. Like I
Yeah.
think it's cool. And so I would have loved to have seen a universe where Rob was a bit more successful, but I think when you have Gyromite and then you have Stack Up, man, there just wasn't anywhere else to take that. So that's the only game on this list that I think is just arguably bad. Everything else has a place, everything else you can argue for. Dave, I think your point was really strong about the fact that most launches, especially during this time, were arcade ports because people were trying to say, hey, look what we can do. Nintendo didn't have that, except Kung Fu was their one arcade
Sure.
port,
Yep.
and they did it extremely well. Like I have more fond memories of Kung Fu on the NES than I do Kung Fu on the arcade.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's they, even though they didn't push that and that wasn't their angle, they still had that representation. So people who wanted that could look at Kung Fu and say, "Oh, okay, well, this system's got chops. It can do what it needs to do." I don't think there's anything that you could say about the NES launch system other than saying it is an A. It is a solid A launch.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I will say this, I do agree with you in the sense of it is a bit of a curve because the Famicom came out in 1983. It gave Nintendo a couple of years of really pushing out titles to determine, like, what are we going to test the North American market with? Let's grab the best of the best that we have. And to your point with Stack Up, the only reason I'm assuming it was thrown in here is because they wanted a second game for Rob, who did make a comeback in the Smash Brothers games. So,
Yes.
he didn't disappear forever. But I do agree with you. There's no point in playing Gyromite without Rob. Like that is the whole idea. And as a kid, having the robot move the piece, move the piece and drop it down. I mean, that was just awesome. You had your own robot as a kid, which was cool. I never had Rob as a kid, so I was denied, unfortunately. But but yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can say about Super Mario Brothers that hasn't been said. Um, I remember, like, from this list, the ones that I'll call out is similar, a little bit similar to Dave, because I was never a big sports fan either as a kid. It came a little bit later. I became a big hockey fan, but I remember really enjoying golf for some reason
Yes.
on this
It's a
system.
great game.
It's such a great game, and for somebody who, like, never, again, as like a 6 or 7 year old, golf wasn't on my radar at all. I would never sit down to watch golf. I was like, but that game, there was just something so appealing with the way they laid it out, and it played so smoothly. As much as everybody, I think one of the ones on the list that people don't like as much that I always loved was Clue Clue Land. There was something about that game. It had again, I think that was also wasn't it an arcade game as
I
well?
I believe it was. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely my lowest rank other than
Yeah. See,
um
and there was always something
Pac-Man.
about that game that I really enjoyed because I've always been like a maze puzzle guy. Even as a kid, I love those types of games. So that was another one that I just played hours on end. I don't think I ever got super far in it because that game has a difficulty level that's ridiculous. But it was an arcade game. That was the whole point of it. Um, and obviously, Duck Hunt is Duck Hunt. That dog is just pure evil. We'll never forget the dog. Just yeah, top to bottom, the variety that they offered, like they made sure that they took care of everybody
Yep.
for whatever you wanted, whether it was a side-scrolling platformer, an arcade style game, a sports game, and then obviously some newer kind of stuff with Rob. They really, yeah, I really think they ran start to finish. I mean, this is an easy A plus for me. Not even an A.
Yeah.
I go A plus.
Can I toss it something out, Chris? You had mentioned that they had a little bit of an advantage, and they did, right? They had a library of games that were field tested. They also had a small arcade presence, but I think that could also have been a risk for them because you think about right, they have patterns they could follow. They could do what they did in the arcades. They could follow Atari's lead in North America, or they could just sort of bring over what was successful in Japan that culturally might not have worked. And they didn't do any of those things, right? They found a way to make it successful with almost no misfires outside of Rob, but found a way to make it successful, not knowing the American market, the North American market. Somehow, they still killed it. It's really an amazing, just like creative insights, business insights. That like they made so many good choices that they could have brought stuff over that did not work for this audience, and somehow they missed it. I don't know if they just manifested the success, right? Because they put it out, it was successful, or they just made excellent choices. I tend to think they made excellent choices, but there's not misfires here that they didn't read the market right or things like that. Just amazing business vision and creative vision on Nintendo's part.
So you're right. I mean, in the sense that they chose these titles very well and they understood the American market, I think, more than you're giving them credit for. But the only other thing I'll add to that conversation is if you look at the Famicom launch, it's not nearly this strong. In fact,
Mm-mm.
it's pretty forgettable. And it's one of those things where it had to really work to gain traction in Japan, and that was helpful when they launched in the US. And also, don't you dare call Rob a misfire because he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He was the Trojan horse of the NES, okay?
Somewhere there's a listener named Rob who is deeply depressed because of the way.
Yes.
Guys, I'm not that. Oh, wait, they're talking about the robot. Oh,
Yes, they're talking about the robot. And if there is a robot out there named Rob who is listening, we apologize.
yeah. Well,
So just want to leave it there. But Dave, for I don't know if you gave an overall grade before, but what was your
A.
overall grade? You give it an
A.
A. Okay.
Yep.
So we got A's all around basically for
Yes. And
Nintendo.
yes.
No surprise there. All right. Let's move on to the other major system that came out in the third generation. And this was, well, when you think about the full release of the Nintendo Entertainment System, this one actually did compete straight up with it, with that full release. And we're talking about the Sega Master System. Also, full release was September 1986. I couldn't get an actual day of release, so I don't know if it was released before or after the Nintendo. I want to say it was slightly before because Nintendo was the end of the month. So, not 100% sure on that. The mystery on the internets remains with that one. But the Sega Master System came out, and their lineup, not too shabby for something that was debuting. First off, the system came with a light gun, two controllers, and a pack-in game, which is a twofer. You got Hang On and Safari Hunt.
You say
And
back
then
in, it was built in, right? Or in some models was it built in? I mean, I know in some it was built in, but was it all
yeah, I
always
don't know
built in?
that. I don't know. I don't know if it was all. I don't think it was all because they released a cartridge, the cartridge that
Yeah.
you can buy. I actually on my shelf, you can't see it over my shoulder. Hiding up here is actually my copy. I don't have it in
Okay.
box. So,
Well, we'll
um,
forgive you. It was
thank
just
you.
some models that had
All
it
right.
built
Yeah.
into the ROM
Mine
chip.
did. My
Yeah.
used one that I bought at a garage sale for $10 or whatever. Great find,
Yeah,
but it
and
was
the
built
and
in.
the Sega Master System that I have that I only got a few years ago because I didn't have one when I was a kid. Um, I got the cartridge with it, so it wasn't built into the system. But the other game, the full set of games, there were 9 games at launch, including the two I just mentioned, Hang On and Safari Hunt, and also Choplifter, Fantasy Zone, Ghost House, My Hero, Safari Hunt. Oh, I already said that. Snail Maze and Teddy Boy, which made me laugh when I
Mm.
heard about that one.
The Adventures of a Young Theodore Roosevelt.
That is
Pretty
correct.
boring
That is
game.
that is exactly what it was. Chris, let's start with you on this one. So,
Sure.
what were your thoughts on the Sega Master System launch titles?
It's hard to compete with Nintendo. And I don't feel like the Sega Master System did a good job competing with Nintendo, if I'm honest.
Hmm.
That being said, it's not a terrible launch. I don't hate Teddy Boy as much as I probably should. It's kind of a cute little fun platforming game. I'll give it that. Fantasy Zone, you can't go wrong with a scrolling shooter. I'm good with that. I don't think I've ever played a version of Choplifter I didn't like. So that one is a pretty solid game on the Master System. Hang On looks great. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just motorcycle driving.
Hmm.
But it's an impressive launch title. And that's about all of the good I can say. Snail Maze just makes me angry. I don't know why they thought that could be a game.
Yeah.
Um, and the music just makes me want to stab my ears with sharp things. So that's a rough one. Ghost House, My Hero, those are rough ones. But it's a decent launch. I think if you hadn't had the NES so close, this would look better. And it's hard
Mm.
for me to separate this from comparing it to the NES and looking at it objectively. And so I feel like with the grade I'm giving it overall, I feel like maybe I was a little harsh, but I'm going to stick with it, and it gets a C minus from me.
Ooh, C minus. Well, at least it still passes,
Yeah.
but a little under mediocrity. Um, Dave,
Yeah.
what did
So
you think
I
as somebody who
directly
owned one?
I bought mine way late, right? At a garage sale. I mean, in the days of the PlayStation. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
back when, yeah, so back when these things were, nearly being given away. And I think I paid like 10, 15 maybe, and it had 5 or 6 games in box. So,
And you ran it up to your wood paneling room with the shag carpet.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great time. I did not get a phaser with it though. I never owned a phaser. I
Uh,
never played any games with the phaser outside of I think maybe Weekend Rewards had one set up that I got to play. So I can't really comment on those. Although I do think Safari Hunt is a very attractive looking game. It has that Sega Master System art style, that pop that
mm,
that is that differentiates a bit from Nintendo. I'll take issue with one thing you said, Chris, on this that you said it's hard to compete with Nintendo. But at that time in 1985, 1986, I mean, that's where that's what Sega was doing. And they weren't like getting destroyed, right? I mean, they were considered, one of these two could be Japan's leader of video games for the next 40 years. So it was actually kind of in a way at the moment an even match. And they got beat, right? And they got beat just honestly, they got beat not on techs on spec. They got beat on game selection, I think. So I look at this list, and the only thing that I think rises to like an A level here of the ones that I've played, and there's a few that I haven't played, is Fantasy Zone. And I'm not even a shoot 'em up, cute 'em up. That's not my genre, but I recognize that's a really good one. So I don't know. I'm with you right on the CC minus. I just think I'm not gonna like, well, it was Nintendo. They didn't have a chance. Like, well, no, they actually did have a chance. They were positioned for success, and they just didn't pull it off. But yeah, I look at these and I'm like, man, none of these are for me. And Snail Maze was only I say this. I'm pretty confident it was only like it built into the system. There wasn't a card release or a cartridge release. I'm pretty sure that there wasn't.
Man, I hope not. I mean, that would
Right.
just
Yeah.
any parent who paid money for that game,
Yeah.
they got fleeced.
So I think you and I, Chris, are coming to very similar conclusions. I'm not gonna give Sega an out here because, like a few other opportunities in Sega's history, they had a real shot and they blew it on a creative level. And you know, and I like the Master System, and I do. I have a genuine fondness for the system and its games, but
Well, I think the one thing I always give credit to the Master System for is I think they have the best version of the Ghostbusters game on it, if
yeah,
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
By
the
far,
OG, yeah.
by far. All right, so C minus from both of you guys. This one was interesting. I think I was a little forgiving on the Master System, and the reason why I say that is I do agree with you, Dave, because the North American market was barren for, a year or two from video game systems. They absolutely had the opportunity to compete with Nintendo. And so um I thought the opportunity was there. And for a system that was starting out of the gate that did not have, the 2 year leg up that the Famicom had, I thought they made a really solid effort to put things out that were appealing, snail maze aside. There were three platformers on there, which was a good start. Like you said, Choplifter is Choplifter, no matter how you play that is fun. Safari Hunt to me, was Duck Hunt with more variety to it. So I thought that was interesting as well. And then to your point, hang on is hang on. But like racing games were all at that point were all kind of the same. Like your hang-ons and
Yes.
your rad racers, where it was just here's your vehicle, and then here's your road that just curves around and you follow it. So a lot of what they were doing there, they were kind of going with the trends that were there to take advantage of. And Ghost House for me, I watched gameplay of it. I've never played Ghost House, but watching gameplay of it, that would have easily have been the first game I would have purchased for the Master System at launch because even as a kid, like that was the theming that I was appealing to me. I got into horror very, very young. So just the concept of that game for me, I was sold on. And the gameplay to me looked like your standard platformer kind of gameplay. If anything, it kind of reminded me of the Goonies on
Hmm.
NES
Yeah.
a bit. Um, so all in all, I was actually surprisingly like impressed with what they put out back then. Especially considering that the Master System did not do that well, obviously compared to the NES, but it did well enough for them to develop, obviously, another system, which we're going to talk about soon. So for me, I gave this a B minus. I gave it a little bit, I gave it a little bit higher than I ever expected it to, because again, I go back and think as a kid, if I was in the store looking at this system and I saw all the games that were in front of me to choose, I think I would have been happy with most of the decisions unless my parents bought me Snail Maze. If they bought me Snail Maze, I would have taken them to court and disowned them officially. So yeah, so B minus for me.
I thought, and when we were looking at this list, I went back. I thought The Ninja was a launch title,
Yep.
and it's not. But I was like, "Ooh, yeah, that," because I do really, really like that game, and I was like, "Oh, this will
Yep.
give me something, great to talk about, positive announce."
And nope, sorry.
Not.
Yeah, see, and doing the research for these releases, again, I stuck to North American release specifically. And obviously, when searching the internet, you have to make sure that you back up whatever you're finding, because people were throwing all kinds of titles into these lists, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like, I don't remember that. Certain ones where I'm like, I know that didn't happen at launch, and then obviously, oh, yep, they're lying. Well, people going off of memory instead of actually like figuring out the actual release date. So Yeah, so it was interesting, like figuring all of this out to try and get as accurate a portrayal of um, release titles as I could. The Retro Gamers Podcast is brought to you by Old School Gamer Magazine. Sign up for as little as $20 per year for 6 issues that include feature articles, interviews with retro programmers, new and old product reviews, and more. If you look carefully, you'll even see an article or two penned by yours truly. You can head over to oldschoolgamermagazine.com/retrogamerspodcast and sign up so they know where you heard about it. Old School Gamer is dedicated to you, the old school retro gamers from the arcades to your home. So those are the two that we're covering for the third generation. There is another console in the third generation that is going to get covered. And that's going to be the Atari 7800, but that's going to be exclusive for our Patreon page. The Retro Gamers Podcast is now launched on Patreon. So, for everybody out there who watches and listens everywhere else, go check us out on Patreon. We're going to be offering a bunch of exclusive content at 2 different subscriber levels there. So, including bonus content for every episode that we record. The conversations will continue over on Patreon. And for this episode, it's going to include the Atari 7800, which I can't wait to hear Dave talk about because I know he had one. And
I didn't have one.
I thought you did have one.
No, I wanted one
Oh,
desperately.
you wanted one. That's
yes,
right. Okay.
So I do have a lot of things to say.
Yeah, I do. I know you have a lot to say, so I'm looking forward to that later when we talk about it.
But you must pay me to say them. Right, that was
yes,
the agreement. Okay.
Yes. No. I will. I have a shiny nickel for you.
I was about to say, did you find a nickel? I
found a nickel. Actually, you know what? I found you 5 pennies since they're no longer in circulation, and I know you want those, so I'll give you 5 shiny pennies.
Heavy trash is all pennies are. Heavy trash.
That's right. All right. So let's move to the 4th generation, where we have 3 systems we're going to be talking about because NEC decided that they wanted to get into the game and compete with Sega and Nintendo. And they are officially recognized as the first system to launch the 4th generation, which is the 16-bit era. And we're talking about the TurboGrafx 16, the PC Engine in Japan, the TurboGrafx 16 in the United States. So I'm going to turn back over to Dave to talk about this one first. When we say that the TurboGrafx 16 released with 4 launch titles, Alien Crush, Keith Courage in Alpha Zones, The Legendary Axe, and Victory Run. So, Dave, what were your thoughts behind these?
A lot of passion between the 3 of us for this system. That is not sarcasm. I mean, they genuinely love the TurboGrafx 16. Mm-hmm. This is not a super strong list, and there are a couple games I really, really like on here. And the pack-in game Keith Courage is a lot of fun. And I'm not objective about this. I am biased towards it. But the underworld dungeon whatever levels, it's overworld underworld type, switch. Those are super smooth, super fast, really attractive, pretty, fun levels, right? And I really enjoy this game. And like I said, I think there's so much nostalgia. It's hard to be objective. And then I think the Legendary Axe is just simply a very good platforming game. I think if there is a criticism to be made, is that it's a bit sluggish by design. It's not a technical limitation. I think that they could have just made the gameplay play a little snappier, but it's a fun, well-designed game. I think it's got a pretty good difficulty balance, and it's attractive, and it's a nice piece of original gaming, and I really enjoyed that. Victory Run is a weak copy of a weak copy of Outrun. It's not an email client either. Don't try to use it for email. Alien Crush is fine. Like, I am not a big video pinball guy, but I'm not a big pinball guy. But the art style is a little techno organic, a little HR Giggery HR Geekery. But it's cool looking, but not my sort of game. So
Mm.
I mean, I being objective, being truthful. This is a B minus launch that has a good pack-in game and a great action platformer in Legendary Axe, but just was not supported in a way that was going to make it as successful as I desperately wish that the TurboGrafx PC engine had been.
Mm. All right, so B minus from you. Chris, where did you land on this one?
All right, so I agree with Dave that it's really hard to look at this objectively. I have a lot of nostalgia, a lot of feels for the TurboGrafx 16, but I landed on this way higher than Dave did. I think Alien Crush is an outstanding game. As a rule, I also do not like video pinball. Alien Crush and Devil Crush are the exceptions. Those games are outstanding. Keith Courage and Alpha Zones, I completely agree with Dave. I mean, it gets maligned, it gets made fun of, but it's a cool game. It looks beautiful. The colors are
Mm-hmm.
bright and vibrant. And man, it was that moment where I played it as a kid when I got a TurboGrafx 16, and if I didn't have that moment, I probably would not have the positive opinion of Keith Courage that I do. But I had that moment, and the listeners are just going to have to deal with that because that's my life.
Can I say
Legendary
this?
X. What? Oh,
Yeah.
You would not have had, without Keith Courage, you would not have had such a positive, such an affection for the TurboGrafx too. I mean, it represents the TurboGrafx in so many ways, I think, right? I know for me, those two are just intertwined, and one without the other is going to work. You play Keith Courage on the NES, you're not going to love it as much, were it to have existed. So man, they're linked in a way that cannot be separated.
which is interesting because it's a very odd pack-in title to choose. And I think if TurboGrafx had chose a different pack-in title, they might have had a very different history. But that doesn't change the fact that I love Keith Courage and Alpha Zones. Legendary Axe, you spoke very well of that, Dave. I think it's a great game. It's one of my favorite TurboGrafx games. I'm a big fan of it. And Victory Run is average. It's fine. It is an Outrun clone, and it's okay. But you got three games on a four-game launch that are some of my favorites on the system. This is an A launch for me.
Nice. All right, very cool. Dave is just like
No,
waving it off.
you're not wrong, right? Because
Yeah.
this one is so hard that you're not wrong.
Yeah. Well, again, this is one of those situations where I think you gotta weigh the quality over the quantity, because I know for a lot of people, like the first thing you think about is when a console comes out, it's like, well, how many games are coming out with it, right? And I've always been the type where I'm more impressed when the games are more they have a quality to them, because I'd rather have two or three games of high quality than than 10 games that are all like mediocre at best. And I think you both spoke to it really, really well. I was not somebody who had a TurboGrafx 16. I had a friend who had a TurboGrafx 16, and that's where I got my gaming experience with it. So I never really had a lot of experience with the launch titles. The one exception out of these, though, oddly enough, was Alien Crush. I remember playing Alien Crush and absolutely loving it. Again, the whole techno sci-fi element to it was right up my alley. Pinball has never been my strong suit in real life or in video games. I'm just not, I don't know. I can't make pinball work for me. But the experience of Alien Crush was just a perfect blend of everything I enjoyed about a video game and somehow making pinball fun for me. And I always remember that part of it. Um, Victory Run, you can just erase from the list. To me, it was just completely forgettable. It also didn't feel like that game didn't feel like it was a leap forward in into that 16-bit era. It felt like you could have just thrown that on an 8-bit
Yep.
system. That was easily a Sega Master System game that I felt like, that it would have lived there and I wouldn't have noticed the difference. Legendary Axe, I agree. A little sluggish, but the gameplay was still really enjoyable. It was a solid platformer, and then Key Courage was just one of those games where it's like I didn't expect it to work, and it did. And I think that type of surprise too helped make it a stronger game. So, so you know, I'm in agreement with all of you guys. I think I'm coming. I guess I'm coming a little bit in between you because I gave it a B. I know you said B minus, you said A straight up, so I'm just right in the middle with it with the B. I wish I had a TurboGrafx 16 when it released. I that would probably have given it that A, but I did not. So everything I do with that, I look back on, and I have some of these games now that I play on my Polymega, and I just have a blast with them, but not Victory Run.
No, but but it makes sense that it was a launch title, right? Like you're trying to appeal to a broad audience. You want
Yep.
something for everybody. So hey, we've got this car game. Let's throw it out there. And somebody out there who's listening, and by all means, email Anthony. Somebody, Victory Run is their absolute favorite game of all
Yes.
time.
Yeah, please email or message and yell at me. I welcome all comers, all insults. I'll take them in stride. I promise. I'll only cry in the corner for a day or two. Um, but okay, so moving on from TurboGrafx, let's go to the Sega Genesis. Both of these systems, by the way, came out in August of 1989. And actually, I'm just realizing as I'm looking at my list, I actually put these backwards because TurboGrafx came out August 29th, 1989. Sega Genesis came out August 14th, 1989. So Genesis had a 2 week advantage from the TurboGrafx. And then the third system, which we'll get to, was actually 2 years later. But we'll talk about that in a bit. So for the Sega Genesis, we had 8 titles at launch. It was Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, Altered Beast, Ghouls and Ghosts, Golden Axe, Last Battle, Space Harrier 2, Thunder Force 2, and Tommy Lasorda Baseball. Chris, I'm going to pitch this over to you.
Pitch it like Tommy Lasorda would in his baseball game.
I just did, which was very badly.
Yeah, I'm gonna disappoint some people here. I
Uh-oh.
love the Sega Genesis. I think this is a weak launch.
Oh.
And the reason it is because these are not games for me. We talked a little bit about arcade ports versus new titles, and the Genesis is arcade ports, and that's what they were going for. That was their motive and their goal, and for that they were very successful. You look at Altered Beast and it's pitch perfect to the arcade. You look at Golden Axe and same, it's the arcade experience at home. It's not what I was looking for. And out of all of these games, Golden Axe is the only one that I would revisit, and I don't revisit it that often. So this is not a big one for me. I will specifically point Last Battle because much like Snail Maze, that game just makes me angry. It is atrocious. It's
Yes.
almost like it's almost like an Altered Beast clone that they didn't even understand what they were doing. Like
Mhm.
it's just pitiful. So I'm this is not a critique of the Genesis as a platform because the Genesis is a wonderful system. Just going off of these launch titles, this is a C plus, and I'm being generous.
Mm.
Wow. That is harsh. I'm glad I didn't have
Yeah.
you in school. Dave, do you
So,
want to rebut that or agree? Where were
well,
you at?
I mean, Sega got was so fortunate to have gotten a second chance with the Genesis because it's not a strong launch. I'm going to land on a little bit different than Chris, but with some of the same complaints. Altered Beast is just a perfect representation of the arcade game. It's just not. It's not a game that you would invest more than an hour in most cases, right? It's as a two-player game, it's got some value, but it's such a strange pack in that showcases that you can spend $60 on a game and you only get a very short amount of playtime. Not the best message to send. And that was unfortunately the message that Sega sent with the Genesis for the first year or so. It was an unfortunate launch. Alex Kidd is no Mario. Alex Kidd is no
There you go.
Wonder Boy. Alex Kidd is just he wasn't a thing, and trying to make him their mascot, it didn't work in the Master System era. It didn't work here in the Genesis era. And aside from Alex Kidd in Shinobi World, I just don't. enjoy those games at all. And Alex Kidd in Shinobi World is fine on its own, but it's it's also the sort of the uniqueness and the cleverness of it, the
Hmm.
novelty that makes it fun. This is not a great launch. I think Golden Axe is the high point, and but you needed one awesome arcade port that felt like the arcade at home. You didn't need as many as we got, right? So Golden Axe was great. I would not have even recommended that have been the pack-in or anything. I would have found something else. But Golden Axe is a fantastic game. The high point of the launch, and frankly, one of the high points of that genre.
Hmm.
I love it. Nothing bad to say about it. I think they were not putting their best foot forward here, and they weren't showing that they learned any lessons from the previous generations of games and who won and who lost, and they were doubling down on a bad strategy. Um, and I want to just say a little bit about Last Battle because it is a ridiculous game. It is so weird. You've got these gigantic just sprites, and they move so fast that it's barely perceptible that they're moving. And then one touch, and they blow the bad guys blow off the screen. It is weird. It is I'm not saying that it's good or really even playable, but it's certainly an experience. And I do have a little bit of fun, is just for the sort of insanity of it. And I know it's it's related to Fist of the North Star, which was very similar in its craziness for the NES. So to me, that one is a little bit fun just because of the weirdness of it, but it's not anything. If you rented it and said, "Huh, I paid $4 for that," well, won't make that mistake again. Imagine buying that without renting it, and that's your Sega Genesis game as a 12-year-old kid for the year, or till birthday or Christmas. Oh, that would sting. And I think that those are not your launch titles. That's like what we would call shovelware today, right? So but I kind of remember it sort of fondly because it was weirdness. Space Harrier is a pretty good arcade port, and it's also a great technical demo for what the system could do, because man, it runs great, it looks great. It's just not. It's you spend $2 on it at the arcade, play it 8 times, and you're pretty good. I mean, owning it, it just didn't have a lot of replayability. I think Ghouls and Ghosts in that whole series is so overhyped. I don't get it. If you guys love it, that's fine. It's just I just don't think it's that much fun. And I do love seeing armor explode off of people, leaving them in their underwear. I mean, we all do. But it's having that happen in the first level 30 times because it's unbalanced difficulty. I don't know. This is a misstep. They were fortunate that they got a second try. But I will say this, right? It never has, video gamers been graced with such a handsome man on the cover of their game as we were with Tommy Lasorda in Tommy Lasorda's baseball. It looks a little bit like a sort of a shiny, aging Elvis, just a little bit with that half smirk. But I mean, Fabio in Wizards and Warriors 2, doesn't hold a candle to Tommy Lasorda. So I mean,
Nice.
most systems could not handle that much rugged handsomeness. But the Genesis could, and maybe that's why it got the second chance.
Maybe it was.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with a C plus. And if nothing else, the technical acumen of these games gave them the chance for the second try, because none of these was technically a poorly developed game. I just think that they were just not the best choices for an 16-bit revolution at home.
All right, you Genesis haters.
No, it's not a
So
hate.
I'm gonna no. No, look. I appreciate your grading system. I am going to counter both of you because I definitely graded this much higher than you guys did, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because you make valid points about the angles that they took, but Chris, I'm going to counter you specifically because you thought, I think you were the one that said you thought it was like a weak attempt to go after the arcade market. I think because of how well the NES did against their Master System, I think this is my opinion, obviously, that Sega was looking for another way to break into the market the way the NES did. And the angle that they took was, well, how can we break into the market with stuff that will draw the attention of kids who were playing the NES? And the only other thing out on the market outside of the NES that kids were playing were arcade games. So I thought it was a very good strategy on their part to be like, you know what? We're gonna grab these kids who are pouring quarters into an arcade and we're going to get them to buy a system and the games and just play them at home. So I actually thought it was very smart on their part to go that route because they were offering kids games that they were already familiar with and the opportunity to play them all the way through without having to, fight with their parents for more quarters to keep playing a game until they beat it. So I thought that was a very good strategy on their part. And it also gave them the opportunity, it bought them time for their research and development team to really start looking into more uh, um, first party titles and stuff like that. Because Sonic was already, I understand they had time, clearly needed more time, and Sonic by 1989 was in development. It just wasn't out yet. So that was my thinking behind why they went with the titles that they did, except for Alex Kidd, which was still their attempt of this needs to be our Mario, but that wasn't hitting very well. Go ahead, counter.
Okay, so just two thoughts.
Yeah.
Um, your analysis is good and it's spot on, and I see where you're coming from. My rebuttal is it didn't work. The Genesis did not become a competitor until Sonic the Hedgehog.
Right.
So even though that may have been like on paper, this is our strategy, this is our thinking, I can see that all day long. It doesn't mean it was a good launch. And then the other thing I'll say, which is not a criticism to anything you said, Anthony, but it's just it again boggles my mind a little bit. You're right. Alex Kidd was the attempt at a mascot. Altered Beast was still the pack-in game. I've
Yep.
never understood that. Like, I like what was. I don't understand Sega having that kind of duality in their
I
package.
think I think it was the thinking I said where it was they were like you can take the arcade home with you if you purchase a Sega Genesis, and the arcade you're going to take home with you is Altered Beast. Now, do I think Golden Axe would have been the better option? Yes, but Altered Beast was the one that they went with. And I'll be honest with you, that as a kid who saw that appeal worked for me. I didn't get a Genesis off the bat, but I wanted the Genesis because Altered Beast came with it, and I loved playing Altered Beast at my pizzeria around the corner. So I know the strategy worked on me. Again, there was a delay for me getting the Genesis because, obviously I had to rely on my parents to get it when they were ready, to spend that kind of money. But again, outside of that, I thought Space Harrier was a solid option. Tommy Lasorda Baseball was Sega's beginning attempt to go after. They weren't just going to release generic sports titles. They wanted names attached to them. And starting right off the bat with Tommy Lasorda Baseball to me was was a good play on their part because they're putting a celebrity baseball player attached to their game. And we saw that all throughout Sega's run with the Genesis. Like every, Evander Holyfield boxing,
Elway.
Matt in football, John Elway football. Like they did this nonstop. But it all started right at launch with Tommy Lasorda.
And they did it with the Master System. Reggie Jackson Baseball
Yeah.
was sort of the precursor to that.
Right.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
smart, right? I don't know like how many kids were running out like, oh, they see the new Tommy Lasorda game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, true. I mean, granted, they probably should have gone with, licensed a younger baseball player, I
Right.
would think. But,
If we're giving this much credit to Sega's, thought process, then that may have been their attempt to go after an older audience, like and a more middle-aged baseball diehard fan would recognize Tommy Lasorda more than a kid would.
true. Very
That's
true.
true.
So, yeah, you're right. That could have been their play there too. Alex Kidd to me was, again, every Alex Kidd game to me was mediocre at best. I didn't mind the attempt that they did. It's an okay platformer, but it lacked the panache, of a Mario. It just did. And there was always something weird about him, like with the fist, that never really worked for me. Where it's like, oh, it's this big giant fist thing, and I'm like, oh, okay. That was the thing that always bugged me about Alex Kidd. Golden Axe, absolute classic. You can't say a bad thing about Golden Axe.
Beat 'em up
Last
perfection
exactly
yeah, just love it.
last battle you can say bad things about for sure.
Yes.
And Thunder Force 2 to me was just there, just again an opportunity to offer some variety. So for me, to me, this was a decent launch. Granted, obviously, all the stronger stuff came later, but I thought this was a good start, especially when you're going into a new era of gaming with the 16-bit style. The first thing out of the bat you're saying is, hey, check out how these arcade games are one to one, and you can have them in your home. So I gave this a B plus. I almost gave it an A minus, but I
Oh,
gave it a B plus because of honestly Alex Kidd in Last Battle kind of knocked it down a peg for me. But the rest I thought was really solid.
You have really good points, and I will officially increase my grade to a B minus.
Ah, look at me convincing you.
I'm standing strong.
Dave's gonna drop down to like a
No,
D
it's
just
just
to like even it out.
I can't change it because of the next one we're going to talk about shows how to do it the right way, right? And
Yep.
I can't square that circle just because I want Sega, to be remembered more successfully than it sadly is. So
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the next one, we're obviously going to be talking about Nintendo's
the Virtual
next
Boy.
foray. Yes, exactly. No, Larry's not on the show.
Yeah, he breaks in. Hey, I heard
We
it's
can.
talking about Virtual Boy.
I heard Virtual Boy and I appeared. Um, that's what happens. It's like Candyman. If you say Virtual Boy enough, Larry just shows up. No, we're going to be talking about the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or the SNES, which came out exactly 2 years later from the other two systems in August 23rd, 1991. The Super Nintendo launched with five titles: F-Zero, Gradius 2, Pilot Wings, Sim City, and Super Mario
Mm,
World. Those were the
goodness.
five titles. And I forgot where we are. I think I'm at you, Chris, to start this one.
Oh, I
Dave, you.
started Genesis. We'll kick
Oh,
this to
okay, I'm
Dave.
sorry. Then we're going down to Dave. Dave,
Goodness.
go
This is how
ahead.
you this
Gush
is how
all
you launch
over
a
it.
system. No, this is how you launch a system. I mean, really. They took their time. They were in a position of authority. They had the high ground, as we know. If you have the high ground, you're always going to win, whether it's a video game war or a lightsaber battle. It does
Wow.
not matter. They did. They took their time, and they have just a stellar set of launch games. Even if you don't love the genres, you just have to love this. And I mean, high points, low points. There are to me there are no low points. The high point, I mean, I'm Super Mario World just goes without say Super Mario World goes without saying, even though apparently I
You
can't
can't say
say
it.
it. It took Mario 3, which how do you follow Mario 3, right? And they did. And I'm not going to get into the what's better or what's worse because it's an impossible debate, right?
Hmm.
And but they followed it, and there was no perceptible drop. It was so great, and it was the pack-in game, right? I mean, just an undeniable success at every level. Um, I mean, I think maybe the weak one here would be Sim City, and I think it's a great game, and it's just a pretty good port of a great game, right? Not my favorite port of it, and but if you had never played the PC one, you wouldn't know, right? You'd think this is just simply awesome. So
Hmm.
I can't. I mean, I love all these. I'm not a shooter guy, but Gradius 2. Everybody has played Gradius 2, and everyone recognizes this is a good example, a great example of this type of game. I love Pilot Wings. It's unique. I know Larry and me, we part ways on this one. But it is unique. It shows off the power of Mode 7, but it also makes a great game out of it too, right? Sometimes these things end up looking like tech demos when they're trying to show off a feature, but Pilot Wings brought something new that is just fun. And then F Zero, what do you say, right? One of the greatest racing games ever, and I think of the 16-bit era. It is the greatest racing game. I can't think of a better example. I mean, I mean, I guess you could put it up against Mario Kart, but I don't know. I don't know. Can't again, an unwinnable debate. But this is how you launch it. This is an A plus. What can you say?
Wow. Well, no, you can't say anything else. Your
Blah, blah,
nose
blah,
is
I'll just mess it
your
up.
your nose is completely brown, man. Nintendo must love you.
Oh, when it's good, it's good. When it's good, it's good.
No, it's all right. Chris, over to you.
Yeah.
How do you top the A plus that Dave just gave?
Well, I guess I match it is the only thing I can do. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna earn my check from Nintendo for this one as well. And I will say that this launch blows me away. I mean, even now, and I was very much there in 1991 for this launch. Played all of these games to death, and to this day they're still some of my favorites. I will take umbrage with what Dave said. I think that the SNES port of SimCity is my favorite port of SimCity. I think it's outstanding. I think it's one of the prettier versions of SimCity, which kind of adds a lot to it.
Hmm.
But I don't want to just talk about how much I like SimCity, because I want to talk about a little bit of the strategy, kind of going back to the Genesis conversation we had. Here was Nintendo saying, "Hey, okay, yeah, you can do arcade on Genesis, sure, but we can do PC."
Ooh, yeah.
And that was in 1991, like that was a thing. Like that was a statement.
Yeah.
There was this great divide between PC games and console games. And for Nintendo to launch with a port of a PC game, even
Yep.
to my young mind, who was just getting into these PC things, that was a statement. And it blew me away. Mario World, outstanding. F-Zero, Pilot Wings, both outstanding. I will take the strong stance to say they are tech demos, but they are so good, I don't care. Like they are fantastic games. I have put so many hours into F-Zero over my life. Pilot Wings, I could get lost in for hours on end, just
Yes.
flying around and having fun and doing things. It is a great, it was almost like the first kind of simulation game that I
Hmm.
encountered. Even though it's not pitched that way, that's kind of what it is. It's kind of just a pilot simulator. And I loved it. I fell in love with it as a kid. And all of these games are some of my favorites of all time, and it's an A plus launch for the Super Nintendo.
All right. Wow. All right. Now, how do I follow this up? You guys with your two A pluses. Um, this was a system for me that when I was putting this together, I was anticipating like Nintendo was just going to run the gamut, right? And just A pluses all around. And then when I wrote out the launch titles, this was the one that surprised me the most that I didn't give it an A plus because and it's all because of my personal experience with these games when I was growing up because I got the Super Nintendo somewhere around day one, if not month one, because my birthday is in the fall. So I may have gotten it for my birthday. My memory's not good, so I don't remember. But I just remember getting the Super Nintendo and only getting Super Mario World. So that was the only game I had when it first came out. And, obviously, what a game to start with because, holy moly, did I eat that game up. Absolutely loved playing every inch of that game. All the secrets, everything was just fantastic. Yoshi, what an iconic character
Yep.
he wound up becoming. Soon to be, co-starring in the Super Mario Galaxy movie, and he looks amazing. um, Outside of Super Mario World, for these games, the majority of my gameplay with them outside of that was really just F-Zero. I remember playing F-Zero, absolutely loved it, had a great time. Gradius to me was never all that appealing. Not saying it was a bad game, but it was just I didn't see much of a difference between Gradius on the Super Nintendo and Gradius on the Nintendo. Even with the graphic upgrades to me, and again, shoot 'em up is not my
Yeah.
it's not my category. It's never been
That
my
is that
category.
is a fair criticism of all shoot 'em ups, right?
Yeah.
It is the lack of evolution. So if you love them, you just love them, and they don't
Yeah.
maybe need to change. That's just a thought.
Yeah, no, and my thought with it is like there should be something to make it stand out if you're advancing it into a new system. Like there should be something where it's like because I don't want to sit there and say, "Oh wow, like I'm playing the same game I just played on my previous system and it feels exactly the same." It would be like if Super Mario World came out and it was like it played like Super Mario 3. Not saying necessarily that's terrible because Super Mario 3 is amazing, but you want that next evolution of it. And I didn't think Gradius 2 had that. Pilot Wings on the Super Nintendo, I completely missed. Completely missed. I fell in love with Pilot Wings on the N64, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But even going back and playing Pilot Wings on the Super Nintendo, that wouldn't have been a title that would have been appealing to me on the Super Nintendo. To your point, Chris, it did feel like it wasn't a finished game. Um, so that one kind of dinged me a little bit too. SimCity later, I really loved it. I loved how colorful it was on on the system. I thought they really took advantage of it. I personally do think the PC version is better, but again, at this age, I was not a PC player either. So it was just a Super Nintendo version. And I thought it was a really good game. I never got the hang of it, but I just, I enjoyed building cities and always winding up running out of money, and then my city would get destroyed. I
Or a
never,
tornado would come
yeah, or a
through.
tornado would do or whatever. My city was always over congested. But I just never got the hang of it, but it was fun to me. That one was also, it was fun to play for a little while. It never held the longevity for me. So for me, Super Mario World and F-Zero carries this group. The other ones I feel like are there for support, but I don't think they're super strong. I gave this a B plus launch, and I know, because I equate that my Sega Genesis was a B plus launch. So
Oh,
yeah, see, I put them on the same level, and I know that hurts. I know that hurts, but I was trying to be as fair as I possibly could based on the list I was looking at. Overall, between the two systems, if you look at the breadth of what came out, to me, Super Nintendo is an A plus, no question about it, because I can list 20, 30 games off the top of my head that were absolutely amazing. But for these five, I don't think it's the A plus.
That's a
wow.
fair assessment, and
Yeah.
similar to how I acknowledge that the Genesis is an A plus, but I rated the launch very low. It's the same sort of thing. So I respect that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Dave's crying now.
I do not. I have no respect for that. I
Yeah.
think that no. I think that one of the things about this is that and that makes it so strong for me, in my opinion, is that I do not have nostalgia for the Super Nintendo because I did not own one,
Mm,
and I didn't even necessarily want one in the moment. I loved my Nintendo. I wanted and wheeled and dealed my way into a Genesis and did enjoy that. But I didn't have the same drive for the Super Nintendo. And I came to it around to it and recognized it. So I think that part of the reason I feel so strongly about it is because I can totally separate the nostalgia, that subjective sort of, oh, I want to relive that. I
mm.
don't have that. And I'm just I'm more convicted on just the quality of it. So I think that makes it feel more real to me. But
Yeah,
yeah, I get it. I mean, this is all highly subjective.
of course. Yeah,
But
these are all
yeah,
our opinions, and we're all welcome to them. And
and I think
if
we're
any,
all in
if
agreement. The Super
yeah,
Mario World just
oh
rules and is it's
no, A plus
special.
title across the board. I mean, and like I said, the two titles that I pointed out for me, Super Mario World and F-Zero, are sitting behind me on my top shelf. Those are the two launch titles that I still own because those were the two launch titles I did get when Super Nintendo came out. So, but yeah, no, I don't think anybody can argue that Super Mario World is not like an A plus game.
I'm sure there's a Reddit thread out there
Oh, I'm
where
sure
someone is just
there are Mario World haters.
hopefully
Yeah.
trolling and yeah, but.
Yep.
On the next
you know
episode of.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do this. So for everybody out there, we are going to split this episode in two. The conversation is going to continue on the next episode. But before we leave you on that, guys, where can they find you?
Well, they can
Long
find
pause.
us.
Long pause.
I was kind of hoping you'd take this one, Dave.
Yeah, I'm going to take it, right? So if you guys have Chrome, open it up. You might have to click twice really fast. We are all over the place. Check us out on our Facebook page. Just type in Two Middle-Aged Guys. I had to think about the name of our podcast for a second. I almost said The Retro Gamers. That's how long we've been recording this with Anthony, because I now feel like I'm part of the show. Two middle-aged guys trying to work it all out. We have a Facebook page. We post all our new episodes there. Interact with us. We have our own a website on the World Wide Web of information. www.2, the numeral 2, that means the number 2, middleagedguys.com. Check us out. Send us an email. Look at all of our back catalog. We have many episodes that deal with retro gaming, as well as other things, normal stuff that people talk about, like David Bowie and Twin Peaks, just that old chestnut, all those things we repeat over and over that you guys are probably thinking about every day anyway. So come join us. Check us out. If you like Anthony, you might like us, because we certainly do like him for the most part. And I have signed a 30 appearance contract with the Retro Gamers. So we have to kind of be on here and say this stuff.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this episode went on for about 30 episodes, so your contract is up.
Oh,
But for us, obviously, you can catch us everywhere at the Retro Gamers Podcast. We're on YouTube and Spotify. You can watch and listen everywhere. We're on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment. Tell us what you think about the console launches that we talked about. And obviously, since we have to split this in half, we would love for you to come back. And with that, we will catch you on the next episode and a continued conversation of the Retro Gamers Podcast.